Kathy, you're at a board meeting right now.
are going to call the Novi Board of Education regular meeting to order. It is December 16th, 2021. I want to welcome everybody here this evening. We do have a quorum. We have several excused absences this evening. Mrs. Roney, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Cook is absent until a little after 8, so we may or may not still be here. We will see, but there's space for him there. So if we can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I can get an approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Do we have support?
I guess I'll support that.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mrs. Hood. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 4-0. Next, we have reports to the board. We have 2 this evening. We will start with the fall bond update. Dr. Weber.
Certainly. Kevin, if you'd like to take the podium, please. We have our friend here from Plant Moran Cressa who's going to take us through a bond program update. Dr. Kinzer and Mr. McIntyre, I'm sure you'll chime in. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Happy to be here. Kevin Donnelly with Plant Moran Cressa. First of all, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank the board, thank the district. This is our fall update, kind of wrapping up the year. So I know it hasn't been an easy year for the folks in the education world, and it certainly hasn't been an easy year for people in construction. So I feel very good about where we are today. We're here to provide an update and think we've got a lot of exciting things to share about what happened this past year and what's yet to come. This is a slide that we're all very familiar with, but it takes us back to, what are the main goals of the bond program? Program enhancements, learning opportunities, technology, infrastructure and equipment, and a big pinnacle of the bond is safety and security. $185 million bond, and millage rate was decreased through the 19 bond program. Some of the progress updates from the last time we were in front of the board this past spring. We're actively in design and planning for some new projects for 2023. Those include the high school technology spaces on the back of the building, the athletics gateway, which will show some pretty cool renderings here in a bit, and the Rohr building, robotics, and actually the Rohr building next year will include the virtual academy as well, with some additional work at adult education. If you recall, we bid and awarded the Meadows project late this summer. We're actively planning work which will start this first quarter of next year, planning behind the scenes with procurement and materials, and we'll be ready to go come February. We're bidding and awarding miscellaneous projects as needed. We've got one that we're bringing forward tonight for stage curtains. It's a need that we need to pull forward within the bond. And as I mentioned earlier, materials, we'll talk a little bit about that later, but getting a jump on material procurement in this economy right now is very critical, and we're getting a good jump on the materials for Meadows. Some of the key planning activities, like I mentioned earlier, the back of the high school, phase 2. I think a couple months back we had come in front of the board and presented an update, actually about a completion presentation on our focused master planning. The district right now is in discussions and negotiations for cleaning up a lot of the property anomalies throughout the district through land swap negotiations. We're actively planning the activity center, and 2022, just like 2021, unfortunately, we're predicting it's going to be a very challenging year with market volatility, inflation, availability of materials and labor. So obviously, knowing that ahead of time, which we knew 21 would be difficult, we're going to continue our contingency planning for the what-if scenarios for next year. Logistics planning and coordination with Meadows. Like I mentioned, we're getting ready to start that project here shortly. Subcontractors are planning behind the scenes, and we're doing all of the proper permitting and approvals. So that wraps up an update on some of the behind the scenes and key activities that have been ongoing over the last several months. One of the tools that we provide quarterly is a dashboard update. A lot of the items I already talked about are noted on here, but this is a 2-page document that, you know, if you really wanted to peel this document apart from the presentation, you could use it as a good communication tool. But it shows all the project highlights currently where we stand, all the current issues, projects that are either ongoing or being planned or that were recently completed. And then obviously, we have a seven-year bond program administered through 3 series of bonds. The financials on here right now do not include all the commitments for Meadows. Those have now been entered and reconciled with the district, and the next dashboard, which we'll generate here in January, will include all the Meadows commitments. From a holistic overview on where we're at with budget, obviously we came to the board back in the summer. We reported that we were over budget on Meadows, which wasn't any big surprise to anybody, quite frankly, but we had plans to how we could absorb that, whether through owner contingency or some other areas of savings. Obviously, the market conditions moving forward are a huge concern. So we're going to continue to monitor that. There might be areas moving forward where we need to focus on critical needs of the bond and trade dollars for non-critical needs. So these discussions are evolving, and we're hoping that, you know, 2022 isn't as bad as 21, but it's sure looking that way as far as pricing. Next page shows some of the highlights, some completion photos of some of the projects that we did this past summer, or some projects that are currently ongoing. The high school addition is wrapping up pretty soon here. The west addition, that is. We'll be wrapping up through the holidays, just into the new year. Should be turning over that space not too far down the road. The middle picture there is the new administration offices at the middle school, along with the music addition to the right. Bottom pictures represent some of the new office spaces, entries, along with the media centers at the elementaries. And that's the bond dashboard. You know, this is a pretty big list of projects that we were able to accomplish last year. Be quite honest with you, it was probably the busiest, if not one of the busiest years we're going to have within the bond. And you add COVID on top of that, amongst all the other challenges. I'm sure you can relate. It was a pretty difficult year, but we had over 15 projects that we executed upon, different sizes, different types of work. We focused on the additions at a lot of locations, the secured entryways over at the high school I mentioned that's coming to a completion here in December. Shortly after that, we're going to pivot to the east addition. So we don't have two main entries done at one time. Once the west addition is done, we're going to move to the east addition, and that should be done probably late spring of 22. The middle school secured entry additions are substantially complete. All these projects, before I go on, there's some stage of completion they're in right now, whether it's in punch list, where they're wrapping up details. We may have some materials that were delayed or late on procurement. No impact to the functionality of the building, but we're still waiting on some materials that are coming in. We've been holding on to those until Christmas break. And in many, if not all these buildings, there's going to be a lot of work that we've been waiting for that's going to be accomplished over Christmas break. I would say at a high level right now, on the construction side of things, we're probably 80–90% complete with punch list work. Some buildings further ahead, some behind. After the break, after we have those couple weeks of opportunity to get in unobstructed and do work, we should probably be down to, on the construction side of things, be down to a short list of items. Right. So we're looking forward to that come the new year, and our goal after that would be to close out all the contracts behind the scenes and get things geared up for next year's work. So Orchard Hills, secured entries, Village Oaks, we have work that's completing over there over Christmas break. We did the soccer pavilion, the first phase over at Roar, boiler replacements at 3 locations, roofing replacements and repairs at various locations, a whole new roof over at Deerfield, which I think looks absolutely amazing. It's a great roof, which should last 50 years. Tennis courts, although they finished a bit late, they'll be ready to go for next spring. They're completed right now. They wrapped up after the tennis season. And the detention ponds that we're doing, we're cleaning those up, reshaping them. Those are wrapping up here shortly as well. Amongst other technology projects that we have ongoing throughout the district. In aggregate, those projects, which were predominantly done over an 11-week period, totaled close to $30 million. So that's quite a bit of work we were able to do within that period of time. We're not going to have a busy summer like that next year. I think we need to take a bit of a breath. You know, the bond wasn't structured that way as far as cash flow either. We're going to talk about what next year is going to look like here in a moment. But predominantly next year, we're going to have Meadows starting, which is our big addition to the 5th grade, 6th grade house. Starting here in January or February, we're working through the final stages of permitting right now. We're going to have the high school athletics gateway, as well as the technology spaces at the back of the high school. We may have some early phases to those projects that will start next summer if it makes sense. But predominantly that work will start after football season. We're looking at other phases at the Roar right now, which are envisioning, which includes the robotics, adult ed, not noted here, but also included as a virtual academy. All of the remaining parking lots throughout the district that require replacement, that are in poor shape, are being replaced next summer. We're going to talk about the stage curtains here tonight for approval. And we're going to be looking to do the pool timing system that's been on our radar over spring break as well. Some photos here of the progress. I'll go through these, narrate as we go along, but this is also going to go on the website, so I think it'll be good for the community to see as well. This here is the secured entryway. These pictures are probably a couple months old, so about a month and a half actually. So things are much further along, but this is the west entry at the high school. Just some of the interior photos of the progress. Again, we're much further along where we stand today. Some finished photos of the middle school, some of the new the secured entryway, the office areas, the music addition. Some of the finished spaces at Village Oaks. I think those spaces turned out great. Same thing over at Orchard Hills. And then these are new, hot off the press. We talked a little bit about the athletics gateway that we are visioning and we've kicked off design development for. We will be bidding this work come April of next year. But this is kind of a rendering overview of that project, that area. Got some cool renderings here in a moment. This is an exterior view of what that new gateway entry will look like. Obviously a whole new reconfigured plaza, a loop turnaround at the new entry, a whole new secured entry you can see going into the building, as well as new concessions, whole new reconfigured new buildings, ticketing, concession booths. Another view of that space. Outdoor seating areas overlooking the field with ADA ramps you can see down below. Another exterior view. View leading up to the new entry. I love that. Wildcat Stadium. Entry into the stadium through the new ticketing area. So yeah, these will be great to put on the website. Some exciting renderings of what's to come next year. Completion in 23 for these projects, starting in 22. Another exterior view of some of the seating areas that we're looking to develop as part of this project. Pretty exciting. So we're looking forward to that work. Some real conceptual renderings right now of some of the interior spaces that we're working on with the technology areas of the back of the high school. This is a particular space that will be pretty notable at the main entry. We're looking to create a glass wall, not only on the exterior, but on the interior portion of the building to highlight the great work that the students are doing in the robotics. So that'll be a great showcase for them. Just some other, again, perspectives, renderings. These projects aren't quite as far along on the rendering side or the design side, but things have been kicked off. And some familiar renderings, but I think it's appropriate to keep them in here, especially since this is going to hit the website again. But I'll skim through these here relatively quick. But Meadows, which is starting next February. This is what it'll look like roughly 18 months thereafter. I think these photos will really get the community excited, and everyone. I know everyone on our team is excited about getting this project going. Typical classrooms. We actually had a meeting today to not only review Meadows with our security consultant, but to review all the projects for next year, looking at things through a security lens and making sure that they're part of the design process. So we had that meeting today. Some great views here of the dining and performance areas. And that's pretty much it for tonight's update. But I hope it was informative. We've got an exciting year to come. We're very proud of the work that this team has done over the last year, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to yourself and to Mr. McIntyre and Dr. Kinzer and the rest of the cabinet, Dr. Matthews, to the Capital Projects Committee with Mr. Menes being the chair. It's a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes. That was just a kind of umbrella overview, but we can see how hard the team has really been working and collaborating. And it's great to hear the security consultant came in today and is really looking at from that lens and making sure that anything that we build is going to be up to what we need. And I know that Dr. Weber will be addressing that. Is there any questions specific to the presentation, Mr.
More
Mena?
comments. It's probably worth mentioning that, we saw a lot of renderings for a lot of these things, especially the athletic gateway area. And it is impressive how you start with this idea, and it almost became like this just huge, expensive idea. And then as we talked about it, we were able to scale it down and become a little bit more fiscal responsible. But even with all of the things that we cut down, we still, I think, ended up with a fantastic end product. So
I would agree.
Really excited about that.
We are too.
And the fact that we could sort of work through these budget issues and come down to things that that will still give us, the look that we want is just a great feeling.
Fantastic. I appreciate it.
Great.
Any other questions?
Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Hi, Kevin.
Sure.
The overhead, the first view of the Athletics Gateway slide, and it was just, I have a question specifically about how the Novi Activity Center is depicted here. It doesn't look like it is to scale. And I'm wondering if that's intentional or that was just like a leftover. I attended a couple of the visioning meetings and we talked about that it is supposed to be or should be wider than the practice field. And on this drawing, it's much more narrow, and I just wondered if it was just a placeholder in the drawing or how
Yeah, I
you
would say at this
intended-
point, it's really just a placeholder.
Okay.
We really haven't started in-depth conversations yet regarding the activity center. What the next steps are going to be is hopefully a collaborative visioning team put together between the district and the city to start getting into a lot of these details.
Okay,
We feel that we have opportunities with the footprint of land to grab the footprint, to grab what we need to do the activity center.
right, okay, thank you. And then on the exterior views of the high school, it looks like the whole high school is getting a new facade.
It's a good question.
Is that a correct statement?
It's not getting a new facade, but what that depicts there is stained brick. In lieu of a very expensive
Oh,
facade,
okay,
which
so we're
was,
painting our brick.
pardon me?
We're painting our brick.
Stained brick is
Stain-
what is proposed right now, yes.
Okay. Interesting, thank you. And then I had one question, I'm sorry, about, from the dashboard report.
Yep,
So, everything is to the dollar. Everything adds up to 193 million. And if we take just, for example, well, I had two questions about the categories. So the district soft costs, professional fees, administrative fees, due diligence. We have a budget of 15.7 million of that. And then you have very specific commitments and actuals, et cetera. So my question, I've got two questions around that. One is, I went back through old meetings and we have approved, from July to October, we approved about 10.8 million payments to McCarthy and Smith. Do their fees come out of this line item?
They do not. Their fees are tied to all the construction line items, which are made up of the 122,297
Okay,
and the 12,912 below it. The professional fees above are predominantly owner rep fees, architectural fees, which are the big chunk of it, and then the other consultants we need to hire, like commissioning agents,
okay.
things of that nature.
And then my last question related to this page was, and I think you prefaced your commentary about this, that there was a 10-page report, which I don't necessarily need to see, but who, back in the old days of accounting, it was ticking and tying, right? And I wonder if we have already, actual costs so far in that first one is $7,456,785. Where is that ticked and tied? Who tracks those numbers?
Yeah, we have an entire accounting team behind the
Okay.
scenes from our end.
So Plant Moran does that?
We do, and we reconcile on a month-to-month basis with district accounting. So, well, we're tracking at all the construction dollars within
Yeah.
the bonds. And obviously, the district's gonna have some costs that they incur on their own, but we tick and tie those dollars on a month-to-month basis.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Any further questions for Mr. Donnelly? Okay. Seeing
Thank you
none,
very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for being
Thank you.
here
Thank
and
you.
have a wonderful holiday, okay? Next on our reports to the board, we have our second item, which is the overview of the Novi Community School District response, ALICE protocols, and preparation for return. Dr. Weber.
Thank you, President Ruskin. Ms. Holly, thank you for queuing that up. Each board member, as well as our two cabinet members, have hard copies of the presentation, as well as a few hard copy documents of what I will be referencing within this presentation. Also, we do have a number of administrators who were in the room on the 2 days that we were preparing here as well. President Ruskin was there for those 2 days as well, which I thought was invaluable. So 2 weeks and 2 days ago, really something that we have unfortunately seen happen in other parts of the country visited us here in Oakland County in some very tragic ways. It's a piece that, as a parent, none of us want to ever imagine as stewards of the community, board members obviously as well. And what we thought would be important is to take you as our community through the past couple of weeks. What we've done for a number of years, so people know, as well as our approach going forward around safety and security. So sincerely appreciate the time tonight for those out there watching. You can also go into the board packet, and this presentation is in there as well. So we're going to go ahead and start this up. If the folks downstairs could throw up the graphic on the screen, that would be great. Thanks. So really, what happened was, obviously, 2 weeks and 2 days ago, we've seen the news in Oxford and so on. Some of it has touched our families very, very closely. People who once lived in Oxford or have family in Oxford. And then, oh gosh, that Thursday night at about 1 o'clock in the morning, phones started ringing throughout the district as a series of threats were coming in throughout Oakland County. So as the parents of our district put their kids to bed that night, they had no idea that they'd be getting a call from us saying that you would not be in school. And that was a moment that 50 school districts experienced across the county, or across the region. And the piece is, how do you tell a kindergartner, or first grader, second, third grader that they don't have school today and they look out the window and there's no snow? So I just want to say empathetically to every parent who was in that situation, I'm sorry. So as soon as the day started on Thursday, we assembled about 45 people in this room and spent 2 days analyzing and preparing for what we could do to protect our children, our staff members, and to make sure that we had our ducks in line, so to speak. So we observed the situation, we reflected, we planned, and then we acted. So that piece of a snapshot of this immediate response is what I'd like to take you through in this moment. So on Thursday, December 2nd, 2021, school was canceled out of abundance of caution. Law enforcement agencies continued investigating countywide threats to schools. There was no direct threat targeted at the Novi Community School District. Resource officers, our school resource officers, Detective Warren and Detective Zabik, updated us that there were no credible threats. We then assembled here in this room administrators, directors, supervisors, union representatives, school board president, and our SROs, acronym friendly here, or heavy in education, so again, school resource officer, gathered together to plan the district's response following the Oxford High tragedy. And our goal was to evaluate our current safety protocols and student return needs. And I think when we get into the depth of that, I'm hoping there'll be some questions or comments. Our district, in partnership with local law enforcement, determined school would remain closed Friday due to the continued investigation and proliferation of those threats. The school board cabinet and Detective Julie Warren met in closed session that evening, and we had, I think, a really healthy conversation around that for about an hour and a half that night. Friday came in, we assembled back here. Again, school was canceled. Our resource officers updated our administrators. There were still no credible threats. We again pulled back together, including our MEA union representative, NEA union representative, school board president again. And we made the decision early that morning that we would not be opening on Monday. And it's important to us that we and everyone in the community knows why, exactly why we made that decision and what we did on that day. And I would like to say thank you to the parents who had yet another day with their children. But I think when you see what we did, my hope is that you'll fully understand our why behind that. We activated and reactivated our mental health hotline, which was created at the beginning of the pandemic. Administrators collaborated to send an update and resources email to parents. Administrators met with building staff to discuss concerns as well. On the 6th, on that Monday, what we did is, for the first time in at least the 12 years that I've been here, the entire community school district got together. We're talking every paraprofessional, neonate, bus driver, everybody, 800 of us at the high school. And one of the moments that came out of Friday that was really amazing is Kim Sinclair, our manager of food service that Greg McIntyre supervises, just said, we can feed them. So we fed, I don't know how she did it, pulled off feeding 800 people lunch and breakfast on that Monday so we could stay at the high school. We also provided childcare for our staff that could not find childcare on that Monday. That was actually provided by our amazing students at the high school, led by Ms. Tobis and Mr. Kane. They pulled that together, so really grateful for them. All staff received 3 hours of ALICE training refresher. So board members, I'd ask you to look in your packets. You're gonna see a 1-page in the yellow folder that you have, or the folder there, that explains that ALICE protocol too, something to keep handy. All staff had that 3-hour building and grade level discussions led by principals, directors, supervisors, on how to support students upon returning to school. And this, to me, was really one of the most important aspects of why we took that day. We've been engaged in ALICE since 2016, and we're proud of that. It's something, frankly, that none of us wish we had to do, but until a lot of other things get right in this world, our job is to indeed try to keep our kids as safe as we possibly can. However, the counterweight to that is an acknowledgement that we have to do it in a way that relationships are built and that we mitigate any potential trauma that can actually be caused by engaging in such drills. And this is where I'm incredibly proud of our staff. And when I look up at the board as well, know that our building assistants, so the people who greet your children every single day when they come into the building, also receive training and capacity building from our staff on how to interact. The building security assessment continued, and I'd like perhaps Dr. Kinzer and Mr. McIntyre to explain a few of these things as well. But when we talk about building security assessment ongoing, you'll see some pieces in the rest of the presentation around cameras, doors, and so on. We then emailed additional updates to parents on that Monday, and then we did a quick Facebook video for parents as well on Monday as a communication piece. So Alice, you've more than likely heard it if you've been watching the news and wonder what it is. We've been engaging in this protocol since 16 again, and it's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. Back when Columbine occurred over 20 years ago, conventional wisdom was that students would remain in the building until the police were able to enter. The police would assemble, assess the threat, maybe wait 2 or 3 hours to go in. As many of us saw in Oxford, that is not the way that it happens now. The police have to go in immediately, and the students are really empowered to make decisions, which many of them did, to save their lives and the lives of their classmates and teachers. When we met with our security consultant today, and this gentleman, and perhaps Dr. Kinzer will speak more about him, was a former Secret Service agent. So to give you an idea of what his life was, it was dropping into a place like Lagos, Nigeria at the airport because the president was flying in. His team drops in there a day before. They make sure that the airport is secure. They make sure that the fuel is secure. All of these things are in place, and there's a reason I'm telling you this story. You know, there's a notion that we can harden our buildings or put all of these physical protective pieces in place and that will somehow magically keep us all safe. I'm not going to sit here tonight and tell you that's true. What I am going to say is if you think about what he did for a living, it was all about process, protocol. They had no control over their physical environments when the Secret Service would have to do that work around the world. What they did have control of and what they did really well was make sure that the entire team knew exactly what to do if something happened and how to do it. And that is really what Alice helps us. We were also told today that the A in Alice, or the alert function, is what saved more lives than any door lock, any bulletproof glass, any camera. The fact that our security consultant actually had to be in Oxford, I believe, the past week and a half, helping them analyze what happened. He saw everything. And he said the thing that did it was the fact as soon as the event started, it was as if the hallways cleared out within a second.
Yeah. So he shared with us earlier today, he was on site in Oxford for the past over a week and learned a lot and shared what he learned with us today. And when he was specifically referring to the alert piece, he said that in watching video, it was as if the hallways were empty, literally in seconds. And that was because they had a system in place where every student and staff member at Oxford High School was well aware of the situation almost immediately. And that is what saved lives more than anything else. So I want to also just mention about the security consultant. While he does have that amazing background that Dr. Weber described, when we interviewed consultant firms in the summer of 2020, his background and the background of his staff impressed us, but what impressed us more was his understanding of K-12 education. So it's not just that he has this background in how to secure an environment. He demonstrated in the interview, and he has demonstrated in his work with us since, that he really understands our world. And he's able to take that background and apply it to a K-12 context. And he's been an excellent partner. And then I would also add, it's the power of a consultant working alongside our school resource officers. That's where we get real value. Because for a long time, I think 9 years, we've had Detective John Zabek working with us in the district, and Detective Julie Warren for 4. And their experience specifically in the district, combined with our security consultants' background and experience as well, makes a formidable force. And they're really helping us move forward. Today was an excellent day.
And on that standpoint, Dr. Kinzer and Mr. McIntyre, I know Mr. McIntyre, your team, Mr. Dragoo led his team in those 2 days as well around the district. And they were doing things such as checking windows, doors, and so on. What were they doing when they were checking the operation and so on of the cameras, the doors, and those pieces?
Yeah, we just want to make sure in the egress windows, that we're able to get in and out, the door locks to work. If there were any issues, there this is something we should be doing, not just as a one-time thing. We want to make sure they're operable all year round, so we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. I thought your team was fantastic. And thank you, Dr. Kinzer. So as we take a look at, one piece that you learn from these situations is what families really want and need. As we went up the grade level, parents felt pretty comfortable in speaking with their kids. But as we went down the grade levels, and I look out here and I see Principal Carino from the elementary world, and really what was important is she and her colleagues spent a considerable amount of time putting together age-appropriate, grade-level appropriate and focused ways to speak with children about this. To be out of school for 3 days, it is everywhere. To pretend it didn't happen and just come back and say, all right, let's get back to school, is not something that we're comfortable doing. Our research on trauma, global world research on trauma, tells us that ignoring these things actually has significant repercussions for people. But when a caring and loving educator helps guide students through these pieces, it can help significantly. So a few of these examples are on here. We did read one in the Facebook video, and that was some of the comment that we had. So our learning experience from this is being very explicit with parents and kind of what we're doing, even if it's one or two examples that seem to work. And I, again, can't thank our team of super talented folks, including we had counselors show up, people who lead our social workers, so on, help us with that. The high school team did the same thing. Theirs was a little bit different. And this is where I'll be a little bit more forceful with you as parents and students. I will tell you right now that law enforcement and prosecutors have absolutely no grace to give right now. None. We have already heard students who could be charged up to 15 to 20 years, and it's tragic to say it. However, the amount of resources and fear caused by threats that are propagated online, whether people are kidding or not, is tremendous. Unfortunately, Dr. Kinzer and I have been privy to too many conversations about things that have happened in other places. This is not something that we at all want to. So as parents, it's so important to have those conversations with your children. And I'm happy to say, really, at the high school level, it seems like those conversations were had with students as well, because we haven't seen things coming from our high school there. So let's take a quick look right now at our continued approach to in response to school safety. So what is working well? We have 395 security cameras district-wide, and while that might not necessarily stop an event from occurring right in the moment, what it does is it gives incredibly valuable information to our police officers, to our administrators, and so on. So all cameras in the district were assessed for proper operation. We're going to address some of the cameras that weren't working, maintenance contracts with that, perhaps increasing, and I don't want to speak for the board, but increasing the police access, as well as to actually up the amount of cameras within the district. And I think that was something that perhaps the board would like to speak to. So prior ALICE training, 1,100 staff members trained. We had a full-scale ALICE drill, or actually 2 years ago, a coordinated, it was on a Saturday, participated in this myself, a full school shooter drill. And students it was optional for students, and parents signed off on it. It's something you never forget when you're part of it. But that will show you that level of cooperation between the district and the city of Novi. So our relationship with the police department and school resource officers is strong. There's been a lot of talk about why should we have police officers in schools, and many people against that. And my pushback as a former high school principal and middle school principal is, if the relationship between the police and the city and the school district is sound, then it is an eminently important and critical piece that really does help with community policing and building relationships. So I am grateful. Many districts decided to get rid of their SROs, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, and I'm happy that we stayed that course with them. And I can say, without them in those 2 days, that Thursday and Friday, really you were there, Danielle. I mean, they were amazing, just incredibly helpful for us. So on Monday, December 6th, we conducted that 3-hour refresher for 800 people: school board members, cabinet, administration, directors, supervisors, teachers, transportation counselors, school social workers, our school psychologists, office staff, maintenance staff, food service staff, hall monitors, paraprofessionals. We're going to continue to provide training to all new staff members and refresher sessions. District and building crisis teams continue to evolve and meet, and continue to schedule practice drills with students and staff. I think another area for growth that we would have there is our guest teacher corps. A difficult piece, but something that came up in inter-school council today, Dr. Kinzer, was that. From the aspect of the relationship side of it, and really hurt people. And people who don't have relationships with people may hurt people. Something that we focused upon in our community school district for well over 12 years before I arrived here as well, was really focusing on the social and emotional learning well-being of our students. The district had invested in things like Leader in Me, bucket fillers, and so on for years. Restorative practices since 2014, and really we use those for the notion of getting together and building community in classrooms.
Can we change the screen?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was just looking at my paper. Mental health hotline during COVID, that was created using technology and something called Telsio, but that was staffed by Novi counselors, Novi administrators, and that provided an outlet for students. Our partnership with Easter Seals has continued to grow. However, to tell you where we are today, Easter Seals just sent us a communication saying no mas. They do not have the capacity to take anybody right now. They are absolutely at their limit. 3 years ago, if I'm going to think about something that we did, it's in your packet. It's a yellow folder, and this is something that is really important right now. But this was a number of years ago, and this is, and I'll just hold it up. Well, don't worry about it. I'm off camera. It's okay. The Columbia Suicide Assessment and Psychiatric Evaluation is something that we engaged in training all of our administrators, counselors, social workers. The reason we did it is really was born out of the necessity of, unfortunately, students who were in deep trouble in trying to find their way, and then parents who really didn't know what to do, and some parents who we would speak with who would not take their students to a hospital setting or anything like that, no matter what. So we wanted to make that as easy for them as possible. So we created a yellow folder, and why is yellow folder important? I'll get to that in a moment. So the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale is something that the U.S. Marine Corps uses, United States Air Force uses. It's used throughout North America and perhaps the world to gauge the suicidal ideation somebody may have. Then what we did is created a document in which the parents could take this document in, sign off, so the healthcare provider would have access to the student records immediately. We also provided any additional information that a parent may need. If you're a parent who's ever had a loved one go through significant or serious mental health or well-being challenges, it's as if your world stops. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. You know the most important person in your life is hurting and you're scared. So we created this to where the parent would walk out of our school with this, and then on the back there would be 4 providers that would be on there that we actually interacted with, and those providers know that if they see a yellow folder walk through their door, they know exactly what it means. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, I'll leave up to you. But if there's something in our district that our people know backwards and forwards how to use, it's this. I wish I could tell you it was at the high school only. When we created this, my belief is high school, middle school. Unfortunately, we have an elementary principal here with us, but our elementary principals and social workers are engaged in providing these folders to families regularly. So why is that important when we talk about safety and we talk about these pieces? A student who would choose to harm other students, I don't think it's a very long jump to say is in exceptional mental distress. How do we make sure that we're creating a culture in which our students can be seen, heard, listened to, and helped? How do we utilize something like this as an assessment tool to make sure that people are getting the help they need? So what I can say is that this piece right here will actually be the basis for our next piece, which is a more specific threat assessment tool that our team developed last week, distributed to every single social worker, counselor, principal last week, Thursday. We already used it Friday on a young student. This is real. We shared that document with our security consultant today. He reviewed it quickly and said this is perfect. So for all of you in the crowd out there who had your fingers in that and helped, sincerely, thank you. Playworks, Haven, the University of Michigan Depression Center are all organizations that we've worked with. Again, on the social emotional learning aspect of pieces, play is so incredibly important. Also, our relationship with Haven has borne fruit. We were able to help a family just this week because of our relationship with Haven get the help that they needed. And our University of Michigan Depression Center also really did help us when we were building the psychiatric document. Therapy dogs in all buildings. This is just a good thing. If you haven't had a chance to experience them, they are a blast. And they have become the rock stars of the district. I think if you've run into them, you can't help but like hang out with them. They're just amazing. And what they do for kids is great, but what I've seen them do for staff might be just as great. Gary?
Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing that I'd like to add to the list, and I apologize that I did not submit this item to Dr. Weber to add to the presentation, but our employee assistance program is another example of something that is working very well in this district. So in the summer of 2019, the board invested in our staff by providing an employee assistance program through Aetna Insurance Company. And our utilization rates are still fairly low but growing. And our staff takes advantage of it in a variety of ways. And it is something that I've heard numerous times from principals, teachers, secretaries, custodians, all sorts of employees, bus drivers, that it is comforting to them to know they have the resource available to them and they can access it in so many ways. So thank you for that.
And I will say to that, Dr. Kinzer, many people have quietly come to me and just said how they've used it for their family and how it's helped their family significantly. So I think the EAP program, again, really something holistically that's there. Something for us to think about is the reactivation of the mental health hotline or the crisis hotline that we had there. Remember, that was staffed voluntarily by our own people during a time of crisis. Perhaps we need to explore how to make something like that in-house, knowing how difficult it is for students to find help outside. But that would be a resource allocation and something that we would need to have more robust discussions on to think through. And as I think about this, it was really neat. I was at the high school today. These three young ladies walk around the corner, and one of them says, "Oh, she's so nice." And I said, "Who's so nice?" And the young lady said, "Miss Tobis. Every time I see her, she's got a smile on her face. She's just great." And so the point there is, like, when you can make things closer to home, parents and students may access those things more readily. But again, it's a resource piece. Our expanded restorative practices use this idea of how we use circles to communicate with each other, to teach our kids how to communicate in a way that's healthy, to feel connected again. What we're hearing is isolation after 2 years of pandemic, and our effort really is to help bring people together. And then creation and honing of that initial threat assessment template. I'm glad we got feedback from our consultant today. In the future, we're going to continue to we talked about those 3 bullets, but finally recognizing the trauma and its impact on children and adults. The next slide, all right, is I was over at Village Oaks this week, and I took a couple pictures of social emotional learning initiatives and teacher-created lessons to promote mental health and a sense of community. So if you're to walk into Village Oaks and you look at the left, this is an example, and Dr. Kinzer, who has deep elementary experience as well as current elementary principal experience. You're going to jump in on the PBIS side of things, but for instance, at Village Oaks, they call it HEART. So I know Village Oaks is very close to you, Ms. Ed. They have a growth mindset. They empathize and show kindness, act responsibly, respect everyone, team up and collaborate. Seems like some pretty good things for our kids to be learning in light of everything that we've seen. And then on the right, these are just really neat. So this regulation station. So we talk about regulation and dysregulation. Dysregulation is when you're upset, right? Something is bothering you. Maybe you're acting out, you're hollering, you're typing mean things on social media to people. You're not saying things you should say. I would say take a look at this right here, which would be do some jumping jacks, some push-ups. You can do a little tree pose. You can do some 5-finger breathing. Just take a pause and come back. So the pieces that oftentimes people can't see, and I wish the world could see what happens in our classrooms because I'm so incredibly proud of it, but is really helping people and our students to learn how to regulate themselves in times of dysregulation. And that happens once in a while in the elementary, Dr. Kinzer?
Every day.
Right. So as we go ahead and hit this one, I think Dr. Kinzer would be important for you to speak to this, which is, this is that site vulnerability assessment, and Mr. Donnelly spoke to this as well, and I was really glad that meeting actually occurred today. But maybe a little bit about who you chose to get as a consultant.
Yeah, so we made the decision very early on in our bond that with the scope of the projects that we would be developing over the course of the bond, that we really needed an expert consultant to help us ensure that our product at the end of when we open a facility, when we make an addition to a school or a renovation, that security lens is very obviously attended to. So we went through a process to select a consultant company, and Jason Russell is the CEO of a company called Secure Education Consultants. It's a Michigan-based company. Jason works for school districts in all 50 states, and I'm sure beyond the United States. So he's a very busy guy, but he is very present in Oakland County. He's a former police officer, then a Secret Service agent, and when he retired from the Secret Service, he knew that he had a passion for education, so he applied his expertise in that area. And it's been a great partnership, and as I said before, I really think the real value is in pairing Jason with our SROs and working together because they bring the Novi specific context that he doesn't have, but he's able to provide very broad experience base and expertise, and we're able to do really, really great work together.
And staying on that topic, if we flip, you're going to see right now secure entry improvement. I'm going to show some pictures in a moment that Dr. Kinzer will explain to you, but to the layperson, Mr. Donnelly, if you want to jump in here on this as well, to the layperson, you may notice if you have elementary youngsters or middle school youngster that the entryway has changed, right? There are some very, very intentional reasons for why that change has occurred, and all of that attention is directed at one thing, and that is the safety of everyone in the building. And so if you take a look at this right here, you're going to see that in the summer of 2020, Parkview, Deerfield, and Novi Woods, their secure entries were completed. In 21, OH, VO, and MS near completion. High school moving in on that right now. All new construction will follow that. Perhaps if you want to, Dr. Kinzer, when I hit the next slide, you can talk about Raptor Technologies. Sure. It sounds very... And then continue training and practice. Again, that notion of training, practice, training, practice, training, practice. But let's take a look here. So what I believe we're looking at on the left is the middle school, and then the top picture is Novi Woods, and the bottom right picture is Novi Woods. So if anyone wants to explain that.
So I think the best way to explain it is to start by thinking about what our entry policy and practice was prior to our secured entry. So we've had a buzzer system where visitors would show a driver's license to a camera, and then we would admit visitors into our buildings, but we did not have a way of controlling what happened once they were in. Visitors would walk in the front door and they had access to go wherever they wanted to go in the building. We wanted them to come in the main office and sign in, and nearly everyone would, but we didn't have a physical setup to force that to happen. So that's what we've accomplished with these projects. You can see in the pictures that now visitors come into the vestibule of buildings. They again show their ID. They interact with an administrative assistant. They're buzzed in, but they have to go into a door directly into the main office. So then we're able to control where visitors go. And right now, we don't have visitors in our building, but we are very well prepared for when the pandemic or the passing of the pandemic allows us to have visitors in our schools, because I strongly believe having parents in school is really important. And we need a good system to manage it. This is what we're accomplishing. So the huge addition that you see along the Taft Road side of the high school, that's what we're accomplishing at the high school as well. So we'll have a similar to that system at the high school where visitors will go directly through an office. And as soon as we complete the Taft Road side, we begin the 10-mile side. So we'll have 2 of those at the high school.
So I believe the parent then has to come into the vestibule, which gives a more secure situation for the assistant to kind of
Yep.
figure out or suss out what's going on before they even let them into the office.
Right.
And then to get out of the office, then they have to be buzzed out of the office as well into the building.
Yep. So would you like me to comment on Raptor?
Yes,
as
I think
well?
it's important. It's got a cool name.
Okay, so we're implementing an additional layer. So Raptor is a system where visitors, when they're provided access into the main office, there will be a kiosk where visitors will scan their driver's license or passport, some form of ID, and it will do an immediate read of the sex offender registry. So we'll also know that. Additionally, it provides us with the ability to load information from our student information system. If there's information about custody arrangements, things like that, we will be able to customize with that information as well. So it's a powerful system that we're in the process of implementing this year.
And the first time I used it was actually at Hillel Day School a number of years ago, and it was really fascinating. I came in, put my driver's license on there, waited a second. They were scanning for the information you said, and then it actually printed off a name tag for me, my name on it, everything I could stick on my lapel. And as I went into there, and that piece really also from a time standpoint, if anyone has been an assistant sitting at the front desk, the deluge of Band-Aids and parents coming in and so on, it's another piece, but that safety layer is really wonderful. And what Dr. Kinzer talked on, it's another unfortunate aspect is custody. And that notion of it is, our people are so well trained at central enrollment. However, we have had situations where there have been custody issues. A matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I know Principal Carino, we dealt with the U.S. Marshals. And so having something like that for your assistants to have and for the building principal to have access to is another layer, again, of comfort we have there. Thank you.
One final thing. So the other piece of that, of course, with a system like that, we'll have to provide really strong training for our assistants. And Jason Russell comes in there as well. So he talked about that with us today, that when we have those systems in place, he'll be back on site helping us provide the appropriate training.
Thank you. So as we look and close this presentation out, Dr. Matthews had us read a Simon Sinek book a number of years ago. And only when we feel we are in a circle of safety will we pull together as a unified team, better able to survive and thrive regardless of the conditions outside. If the circle is broken, group strength diminishes. So I've had George Sippel's amazing as far as his ability to help connect our district with the outside world and media. I have done more interviews and things like that than I care to. And I'm going to say that every single person, radio, television, or print, asks me the question. So are you going to put metal detectors in? What are you going to do here? Without ever coming around to the question of what about the social emotional aspects of this whole piece? So I, being an educator, often try to educate them as to why they should be asking those questions. So what we have here is individual responsibility, school responsibility, family and community responsibility, and Novi Community School District responsibility. I want to take you through that. On a personal level, taking care of ourselves, becoming involved in our community, reaching out for social emotional support, again, go back to the Psychiatric Eval Forum, helping our kids learn to use social media responsibly, using OK to say to report tips, seeing something and saying something. I cannot emphasize this enough. I can't share with you the details, but what I can say is that parents will call and say, hey, this is probably nothing, but I'm just going to tell you. and I'll be darned if it is really something. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. Let people know. Follow safety instructions and drills. Below that, family and community level, foster a sense of community. Increase mental health support for students and their families. We have the Novi Mental Health Alliance. It's been going now for over 3 years. I had the good fortune of our former athletic director, Brian Gordon, inviting me out to Royal Oak in an evening a couple weeks ago. They're starting a similar piece there. So we need to get involved with each other as a community. And it's been difficult in the pandemic, but no one makes it through this life alone. Seek supportive services via civic, faith, and community partnerships. Whatever your anchors are, try to find those anchors in your own life as a community. And then practice firearm safety. Locked, unloaded ammunition, sold separately. So here's the thing. So this right here, could you go put the camera on, please? Flip it from the screen. I want to show something that is important. Can you hear me downstairs? They should be able to do it. There we go. I love our team. Just wish they could make me look a little better. What are you laughing at? It'll come up. This is important. I'll wait.
He's confident.
I am. Just wait time. Here we go. I knew it. I believe in you guys down there. So this right here is actually a trigger lock or a lock for a firearm. And I went to the Novi Police Department 2 Saturdays ago at 10 minutes after 12 on a Saturday. And I asked if I could have a couple. And then I had the good fortune of seeing Chief Malloy, who's amazing, a couple days ago. And I said, so how many could somebody go in and get of these things? And he said, RJ, we have boxes of them. And they will give them to you.
For free.
For free. So I'm coming to you as a plea. I'm a gun owner. I have owned guns my entire life. We must secure our weapons if you choose to have them. And there is no excuse to not be able to do that when our police department will basically give you a box of them if you want them. Then I also asked if it was possible, maybe there's a situation in your home that you're uncomfortable with, maybe you have weapons in your home, they're not secured. I said, Chief, when I worked in another district, if parents wanted to bring their weapons to the police station and have you keep them for a while until things settled or were figured out, is that something you offer in Novi? He said, absolutely. So I would say for anybody out there, please, please, please use your local resources as well to find out how to secure your weapons and make sure that you do your part to keep us safe. If we could flip back to that slide, please. Thank you. Final 2 boxes. So if we look at the school level, fostering a sense of community here in Novi is something that we take incredibly seriously because that notion of relationships occurring, there is no effective or good teaching without relationships, period. We know this. We've all been in school. We've all had teachers. We've all worked with people. When you have a relationship with them, the learning grows exponentially. So that is really one thing that we are very intentional about in our community school district. Also at school level, Dr. Kinzer talked about visitor screening, volunteer background checks, which occur out of our human resource office, secure entryways, which you got to see, practicing our safety drills, making sure doors are locked, making sure that we're giving kids the tools to regulate their own emotions as well as to have conversations, and using restorative practices as well to educate. So we are educators, right? So you may hear this notion of zero tolerance and pieces like that, and there's much time for us to talk about this. I'll make this offer once again, as I made this offer, I think 2 or 3 times here in this room. I would gladly have a 3 to 4 hour meeting presentation on any SEL aspects, including restorative practices that people want to have. I have the good fortune of working with incredible people in this district, and we'd be happy to sit here in the middle of the room and take any question whatsoever around this, because it is that important. When we talk about and think about what isolation does to our children, what mental health issues do to our children, and we think about us as a community school district saying, let's not do that. That is just something that makes absolutely no sense in my opinion, that we need to find ways to connect and find ways that we can build that community. So on a district level, again, the partnership with the Novi Police, I'd like to thank Chief Malloy, having worked beside him for 12 years now. He is one of the finest chiefs of police that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. School resource officers, again, Julie Warren, John Zabik, absolute aces all the time, but this past 2 weeks, they just, wow. Employee assistance program is in there, I didn't forget about you. That's important as well. Crisis evacuation and trauma-informed care training, these are things that you're never done with. We can easily get better at. We need to develop pieces, and this is where we'd love to bring the community in to help us. What is the community seeing as far as what would be a great relocation point at certain buildings? What have community members noticed? There's nothing like the lens of dropping your own kid off or listening to your own kid talk about school, right? Like, you're hearing stuff in your home that we may not be hearing. So we'll be including you as parents in these conversations. School social workers and counselors, I'm going to say to our board, thank you. We've made a huge investment in the past 4 to 5 years in hiring social workers in our district. And really, again, these past 2 weeks without them, I don't know what we would have done. So thank you for that. And fostering community partnerships with Easter Seals, anyone who will work with us, Haven, Easter Seals, U of M Depression Center, Novi Youth Assistance, Novi Community Coalition, all these pieces together. And that is it. That's what I have over the past 2 weeks that we've engaged in. A sincere thank you to everybody who took part in that, and for each of you who are out there still wrestling with all these things. We know there are no easy answers, but we felt it was important before we went off on holiday break to provide the community with as much transparency as possible in what we're engaging in. Open any questions from the board, comments, wonderings?
I'll start by saying thank you, Dr. Weber. I sat in on those meetings, and, I'm mostly a quiet observer, and that's what I did spend that day doing. And just reflecting on your first slide, observe, reflect, plan, and act. And there was a lot of reflection that first day. People were in shock and wondering, what are we doing here? Are we up to par? Do we have everything in place? And so I think then once the team got down to work and to watch them work together, we all know that we have the right people in the room. It's just a matter of them working together and collaborating and figuring out what we're doing right and where the gaps are. And it's quite impressive to see that it can be pulled together in a summary to be transparent to the community. I think that first day there was a lot of questions, and a lot of these things have been going on for years and years, but putting it down so that all of you feel comfortable and confident in the jobs that you're doing, in the keeping children safe and yourself safe, so that you can focus on the education piece is extremely important. And I believe that this report shows that. And also, communication is key. We've talked about that over and over, and that hearing this information out to our community. And will there be questions? Of course there will. And just like you pointed out, I love how the slides were put together and showing what has been done in the past, what has been done kind of in the 2 week time frame, and what the plan is for the future. And the fact that there is still things to be done just shows the ability and the confidence in the team that we're never at the end. There's always things that can be done to make improvements. So I think that is honorable and wonderful that we're always evaluating just things we can do to keep our children safe.
Well, and I'll
which is
say
the
personally, you spending 2 days with us there in this space, in this room, working with us actively, helping provide your own input and make your own observations was huge, because it showed our team of 42 people that the school board is invested in really knowing what's going on. And I'm glad you got to see it and take part in it and experience it, because with all of the emails you get, the questions you get from community members, your ability to firmly and confidently say that you really did get to experience our folks in action and see what they did and how they did it and the care and love they put into it. I know many people have commented to me that they really appreciated your curiosity, your interest, and your help, so thank you for that.
Thank you. And then one thing I can potentially speak for the board, and then we'll open it up to questions here, is I know the board did have the opportunity to attend on that Monday for the Alice refresher training, and it was quick and happened, and it was amazing that 800 of our staff could be there. I mean, I actually watched that occur too, and it was just incredible to know that no one in that room was gonna say like, hey, I haven't been trained, because they did have an opportunity. But as a board, when the next refresher comes up, if we can have that information, because we'll be in the buildings, hopefully more so as this pandemic stabilizes, subsides, however we want to look at it. And I think it's always very important that any adult that's in the building, just like any child, is trained and knows what to do in a situation, so.
And for all of the board members, and so the community realizes each board member has a building that they are assigned to, I believe. And, you know, I look out and I know that any board member who chooses to go and walk the halls with one of our principals and really just kind of get a feel for this space with them will learn a tremendous amount about the inner workings of any building. I have an amazing amount of faith in our principals because I get to see what they do on the daily. I would say if they're a board member, take them up on their offers for tours, wear running shoes. Although Principal Carino in her formal shoes can run pretty fast down the hall, it's pretty amazing. It's a fire alarm and it was impressive. But I think she's been training for that for a while. So I would say wear your running shoes on those days, but also, you know, the joy of it is this is that paradox of where we're at right now. You know, the more we can never harden our schools to the point of absolute safety or where we can guarantee it. Schools should be places of joy. And that's really what you're going to find if you choose to spend even an hour with any principal, is the smiles, the laughter. There is nothing like listening to kids laugh and finding joy in their learning. It'll make your day. It really will. It's a blast. And then you'll leave there also, I think, being able to speak to your constituents perhaps in a way where you have more confidence and things like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any comments, questions?
A really thorough presentation, and I do appreciate, seeing all the work that's
You're
going
welcome.
on. I think that's really helpful to know. Reassuring also, I'm sure, for people, and the preparedness, which is so important. Just to say, obviously in my line of work now, I'm seeing a lot of, I have several teenage clients, and the anxiety around this and talking about preparation and how that is calming to anxiety. It's a counter to that. So appreciate seeing how we're preparing, not just our students, but staff and the efforts. I know the library had also a program, I think Monday night, on talking to your children about it at every age level. And I wasn't able to attend, but I know someone that did, and they said it was really helpful for them, even personally, and feeling a little more like they're now prepared
Right.
for even the dialogues to have. Hopefully, they won't have to have them in the future, but just feeling prepared about it, then there's not that anxiety around.
Well, and thank you for your professional work and expertise, because what people don't understand about anxiety, different forms, it manifests in different ways, but really having control over a situation helps to ease your anxiety. If you can predict, or at least in your mind, predict what you need to do, it takes away the what if part. And I really think we learned that with parents Monday night with that quick Facebook clip. Parents reaching out and just saying, it was so good just to hear an example of what was going to be said in the classroom, right? Because parents I don't want too much to go to my son or daughter, which is completely right. Some people not wanting too little, but knowing where that was something that I think also helped. So thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. Any other board comments or questions?
No, I would say thank you very much.
You're welcome. We work with some amazing people, and I don't want to get too weepy here, but I'm going to tell you. Danielle saw it. I don't need to say anything else. It just was 2 days of, we planned a day of intense training for 850 people, and our team did it in 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours. And it was great. It was great as that kind of topic can be. I know I'm the academic geek, but I'm telling you, that was the testament to me, was how you survive a storm isn't about any kind of magical thing you do in the moment. It's the preparation before that issue hits. Just like at Oxford, how the training helped them, right? But we were able to do what we were able to do Friday because our team, being supported by our board and by our community, was ready, and they nailed it. So thank you to each of them. Thanks for listening to the presentation.
Thank you, Dr.
got
Weber,
it.
and thanks for all your work here.
You got it.
We are going to move on in the agenda. Our next, our next agenda item is comments from the audience related to agenda items. You know the drill. If you fill out a green card, Mrs. Holly is in the back. Individuals who wish to address the board must identify themselves, their address, which you can just write on the green card, and any organization they may represent. The board and individual board members will not directly respond to comments or questions that arise during the public participation portion of the meeting, but certainly will take notes and follow up as necessary. Individuals who wish to address the board shall direct their comments to the entire board, the four of us that sit here, and not to individual board members, the acting superintendent, other school district employees, or members of the audience. Behavior that is intemperate, abusive, defamatory, or discourteous, or that otherwise interferes with the orderly conduct and timely completion of the board meeting is strictly prohibited. So we welcome anyone to come up to the podium and share any comments that you might have related to agenda items. Okay. Seeing none right now, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is our consent agenda. We have 4 items on our consent agenda. We have approval of the minutes, the regular meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2021, work session minutes of December 2nd, 2021, closed session minutes of December 2nd, 2021, and we have approval of a donation, which was an anonymous donation.
Wow.
If I can get a recommendation, please.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mr. Mena? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 4-0. We'll move on to.
Can we just thank the anonymous
Yes.
person for the donation really quick?
Yeah,
Thank you, whoever you are,
I know.
for the $15,001.
Yeah, it's really intriguing and secretive and amazing and categorically diverse in the way that the monies will be spent, so.
Yeah, I thought that was exceptionally interesting how the donor chose the allocations. We have physics, band, a scholarship, football program, special education. So how that all comes together, it was almost like they sat down and said, we want to tick off every box on there. And much love to whoever this is. Thank you very much.
And how they knew about some of these specific needs was pretty,
Love it.
pretty interesting, so.
It was.
Yeah,
And
pretty cool.
much
I
gratitude.
said, wow, this is really cool.
Okay, we'll move on to our action items. We have 3 action items tonight. First, we have Personnel Report A.
That's right. Dr. Kinzer, you're going to do a little A and B tonight, eh?
All right, thank
That
you.
was a Canadian, I mean, A, B, not A.
This evening, we have 1 retirement. Agnes Lee, 2nd grade teacher at Orchard Hills Elementary School. 1 resignation, Jody Malbin, payroll manager here at the ESB. And 1 leave of absence, Mary Ellies, 3rd grade teacher at Village Oaks Elementary School. This is a year 1 childcare leave of absence.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. If I can get a motion. Mr. Mena?
Sure, I'll move that the board adopt the personnel recommendation as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Murphy. Any conversation, question? Okay. Seeing none, we are ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll move on to Personnel Report B. Dr. Weber?
Yes, Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you. Former Deerfield Elementary School Principal Dr. Julie Bedford informed the superintendent of her intent to retire in October of 2021. Several steps were taken to develop an understanding of the needs of Deerfield Elementary School. Staff and parents both had an opportunity to give perspective of qualities that were needed in the next principal of Deerfield. Cabinet also considered the position and the needs of students and staff. The initial posting generated nearly 80 applicants. Based on our online screener, 11 candidates were selected for the first round of telephone interviews. I conducted those interviews. From that, 6 candidates were selected for in-person interviews before a panel of district administrators, Deerfield staff, and Deerfield parents.
One of the 6 candidates was an internal Novi teacher. The committee recommended 3 candidates to the superintendent. The superintendent interviewed the 3 candidates on Tuesday, November 23rd. Based on these interviews, the panel interviewed the leadership profile developed through HumanX Ventures and discussions with Cabinet. Melissa Lane is recommended to be the next principal of Deerfield Elementary School. Ms. Lane began her educational career as an elementary teacher in the Birmingham Public Schools, where she taught 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades. After teaching for 11 years, Ms. Lane was assigned the position of instructional specialist at Pembroke Elementary School in Birmingham, where she provided direct instructional support to teachers as well as district-wide professional development. In 2017, Ms. Lane was selected to serve as principal at North Road Elementary School in the Fenton Area Public Schools. As a principal in Fenton, Ms. Lane has successfully led her school in developing strong instructional practices centered on data and research-based pedagogy. Ms. Lane demonstrated a deep knowledge of teaching and learning, supporting students, working with parents, and supporting staff. Most importantly, she clearly articulated her deep concern for and support for students. Ms. Lane is knowledgeable of MTSS, understanding data, developing teams, and supporting all the students in her care as the building principal. Ms. Lane is a proven leader and will serve the Deerfield community well, so we ask you to recommend her, or to approve the recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. If I can get a motion?
I
Mrs.
move
Murphy?
that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve Melissa Lane as the new principal for Deerfield Elementary.
I support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mrs. Hood. Do we have any specific questions or comments for Dr. Kinzer?
I am sure you're excited to have her start, so you can get back to your real job.
You know, I had this conversation with Jason earlier today, but I'm actually have mixed feelings about that because I've grown pretty close with the Deerfield community, and it will be, you know, with mixed emotions when I finish my assignment there. Certainly, I am torn because it's difficult to do 2 jobs at once, but the energy that I get from being with students and staff, you know, I don't get that same energy as central office. So it's and I really truly believe that.
Really? Even with RJ?
Well, there is that. But I really do believe it's healthy for central office administrators to get back in the building.
I think it's
So
healthy for you to
been a
stay
great-
away from here then if you don't want to.
That's
And
awesome.
Mr. Mishner and I see Mr. Woods here, we haven't been invited for cookies or anything in your office yet.
More for me. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. Any other questions or comments?
I would just say it's terribly exciting to bring a new person into our system, especially in the role and being the steward of a building. I've never worked in a great building myself as a teacher without an exceptional building leader. You can have pockets of that piece, but really you need that person to bring it all together, and we're very excited for her. And all kidding aside, Dr. Kinzer has done really a wonderful job in bridging those two areas. And I'm really grateful for him, and I'm happy that he requires like 2 hours of sleep a night because I think that's all he's been getting. So thank you, Gary, for throwing your shoulder into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Okay, I think that we're ready for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We will move on to our final action item, which is Novi Meadows addition and renovation structure cabling project.
I believe we
Dr.
brought
Weber.
this up for information at our last meeting, and so right now it is the pleasure of the board to make the decision. The recommendation being that the Novi Community School District Board of Education award the Novi Meadows addition structured cabling project to Moss Audio in the amount of $87,762.07 and approve the recommended district managed contingency of $17,533 for a project total of $105,315.07. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. If I can get a motion? Mr. Mena?
And I move that we approve the Meadows cabling project as mentioned.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Murphy. Do we have any specific questions on this? I know Mr. Donnelly's here. but I know that we asked questions last time and had an opportunity to send in questions if we had any further. No? Okay.
It's always nice when you approve the less expensive bid, right? So obviously, we don't always do that. There are occasions where there
There's
are
reasons
where we
not to.
don't. So it's always nice when you feel comfortable with the vendor and they have the lowest bid, so.
That is great. Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 4-0. We'll move on to our one information and discussion item, which is bid package number 9, theatrical drapery and rigging replacement.
Thank you very much, President Ruskin. It's too bad our master thespian, Tom Smith, is not here. He is a SAG card carrier. On Thursday, November 18th, 2021, at 1 p.m., sealed bids were received and publicly open. In attendance were representatives from the Novi Community School District, McCarthy and Smith Incorporated, TLS Sales Incorporated, and interested bidders. It was determined that 7 of the district buildings warranted replacement of theatrical drapery and rigging due to deterioration of the fabric's fire retardant properties over the years. The project team conducted post-bid interviews, and based on the project team's review of the proposals and bidders, they are recommending the following to Novi Community School District for contract, for the contract award. So that would be North Coast Studios, the base bid being $123,637, an allowance of $20,000. Hopefully, Mr. McIntyre can explain what that means, because I never had an allowance of 20 grand. Kidding. PLM bond, CIA financial of $3,263 for a grand total of $146,900. So, Mr. McIntyre or perhaps Mr. Donnelly, if you're available to answer any questions for the board, please.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Do we have any specific questions? Or certainly if something comes up between now and the next board vote, which will be our January meeting, you can send them over. I mean, the only comment I have is I really love that we're not just aesthetically changing the drapery because we don't like the color or how it looks, but that it's actually for a safety reason, and that it was evaluated that the fabric's fire retardant properties are not where they need to be to protect our students in our buildings, so.
Excellent.
Okay. If you have any other, or have any questions, please forward those, and I know that Mr. McIntyre will get with his team and get those answered for us. Thank you. So we will move on to our second opportunity for comments from the audience. Same thing, Mrs. Holly has the green cards in the back. Please fill it out so that we have record, public record. And you're welcome to come up to the podium and state your name and share your comment. Okay, seeing none tonight. We do appreciate our audience members for always being here and listening so intently to what's really happening in the district. Tonight there was an important report, and although it was lengthy, I think that every second of it was valuable. So appreciate you being here. We will move on to the acting superintendent report.
Thank you.
Dr. Weber.
So, first and foremost, thank you. Quite simply, the past 2.5 weeks has been very difficult as a community. It was one of our communities that was very close. Some of you may have known people. Every time we drop our kids off at school, we all feel and believe that they're gonna have a great day and come back. And that didn't happen in Oxford. So I know many of you have prayed and sent love and care towards that community, and I just want to say as a public educator for my life, thank you. I watched the Oxford School Board meeting 2 nights ago, and really for the administrators and school board members and counselors who had the grace to take the anger and the frustration of some of the community members really is a testament. School board members aren't paid any money. They live in the community, obviously. They go to the bakery, they go to the grocery store. And really, my heart went out watching that board meeting and how they did what a representative democracy should do, which is interact with each other. And I thought that really, in some of our worst moments, we can find some of our best moments of who we are. For the teachers in our district and the kids and everybody, I don't know about you, I know I am going to enjoy these next 2 weeks probably like I've never enjoyed them. I think I've already shopped for one of those pajama onesie things. I'm just going to wear it for a couple weeks. If you see me walking around in Target, Jason, just maybe point me back to the car and say not appropriate, RJ. Go get some shoes on. So much love and respect to each of you. I can't thank the people who are in this room and everybody in the district enough for the past few weeks. Never seen anything like it. And the way that you all came together as a community is really what I find beautiful about our country and about public education. So for each of you, thank you. I hope you have a great holiday season. Sleep. Let your kids sleep in. All right? Don't make them do a bunch of homework yet. Let them eat a lot. All those things. And I can write you a doctor's note or something if you want to stay home with them for a couple weeks. I'm a doctor. I can write you a note. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber.
Enlighten us.
We will move on to our administrative reports, and we'll start with Mr. McIntyre.
I too want to echo what Dr. Weber has been saying for a while. We have an amazing team here, and I'm glad Dr. Ruskin had a chance to witness what I've witnessed since I've been here about the amazing administrators, teachers, and support staff. So I want to say thank you everyone for that. We had a family loss up in the transportation department, and I was over there, and I want to thank Dr. Weber. I see Darby back there too. Thank you for setting up some counseling. So I sat with that group over there, maybe about 14 or 15 of us. We really needed that. There was a lot of sharing, a lot of tears, a lot of reflecting, some of that stuff at home. And so we started out here. At the end of the 45 minutes, we ended up somewhere in a better place. So thank you guys for setting that up. It was much needed. And I was a part of that too. So I want to say thank you for that. And also I want to wish, it's been a pretty tough year, but I don't want to wish happy holidays to the board. Thank you for your support throughout this entire year. My cabinet teammates, hopefully Dr. Matthews is watching us, him too. All my coworkers, the entire Novi community, and all the parents who come in night in and write emails, who advocate for their kids. And so I want to say thank you to all those, thanks to the kids. Just everybody just have a happy holiday season, and let's come back in January rejuvenated. Let's get at it again. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
I'll risk redundancy and also just extend best wishes to the entire school community, our administrators, our teachers, our staff members, the board, the entire community. Enjoy a restful break. Looking forward to coming back in the new year.
Thank you. We will move on to board communication between the four of us. Any conversation or communication?
I would just say, ditto, I really do hope that people can use this time to kind of regroup and restore and all those things that we need so desperately periodically throughout the year. Especially it seems like now, that people would be able to enjoy their families, hug their kids a lot, even when they don't want to be hugged. And just enjoy the time together.
Any other comments? No, you're going to be quiet tonight?
All right.
Has anything
Sure.
happened sports-wise?
It's been pretty quiet. I think
It has.
there's one basketball tournament at the high school coming on Tuesday. So I think they were hosting a 5-team basketball tournament. The exciting news, though, is I don't know if anybody's ever spent any time at the performance gym. The sound system there is horrible. I always make fun of Jack Crawford, who's our announcer for a lot of our events, and whenever I see him, I go up to him and I say, "Hey, Jack, how you doing?" You know, I always kind of make fun of him because it's not him, but it's the sound system. But the new sound system is supposed to ship from Daktronics on tomorrow. So when it gets here, they're going to try to get that installed, probably even during the holidays. So
That's
it'll
exciting.
be really, really nice because I think we've gone through a couple iterations, and in that type of space, it's really hard to install good sound, and I think somebody finally perfected it. So let's cross our fingers that happens. And again, I want to wish everybody a really great holiday.
Thank you. You as well. Any comments, Mrs. Hood? I won't make you speak, you don't have to.
I know, no, I was thinking, so I won't be redundant, but I do wish everyone happy holidays, happy a 2-week break, but I was just thinking for the report that we had tonight, and when I was leaving home tonight to come here, I had a moment of, maybe it was anxiety, and I thought, I am so exhausted thinking about this, just thinking about, and I'm almost a spectator. And I am so grateful and thankful for, I'm gonna cry here, for, I don't wanna let it go. For all of the people who, our staff, everyone who interacts with our kids, and really across Oakland County. I mean, to get up in the morning and come here and be on for your little faces looking at you is something that I can't imagine having to do. So I just want to say thank you. Double thanks. That's all. Thank you.
And I too would like to, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Weber as the acting superintendent with his cabinet. The three of them have been just really remarkable. The communication, I know Dr. Matthews has been sorely missed and had no idea when he planned his surgery that this would be the next crisis at hand, which, you know, out crises, even the previous ones. I know you've been in communication with him, but thank you for your work and your transparency and your communication with all of us and with the community. It's really been fantastic in a time where things are extremely challenging. I too had an opportunity to watch the school board meeting, and although it's heartbreaking to see the angst and the wanting to find fault and all of that, I did feel that as a whole, the Oxford community was so impressive. The parents really, even in moments of extreme anger, went up and shared that, but in a professional, kind way, just to communicate. And the board members and the superintendent over there, they know they're in crisis and they're doing the absolute best that they can for the moment. So I watched it not to be, you know, what's going on over there, but as the cabinet knows, and I've shared with them, like with every tragedy, there's opportunity and there's so much to be learned, so that we can just continue to fill that right side and figure out what our next plan of action is and what we need to do to continue to improve. So I'm going to look forward to a 2-week break with my kids, and I look forward to January. And knowing that when we come back in January, it's not going to be, you know, roses. We're going to be back to taking care of the situation at hand, but hopefully the rest and relaxation of the children and of the staff will bring some comfort, and we'll be ready to go again. So thank you for everybody who sits here and listens and participates and is part of that circle that Dr. Weber shared, and we will see everybody in January.
Thank you.
Oh, I can't wait. I need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy, supported by Mr. Mena. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.